Hey, what's up, everybody? BDF44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I'm eating a little breakfast. Just thinking basketball, obviously, as always. And what's on my mind is just I've been trying to figure out. I guess there's a concept in my head, and I don't really know how to present it, but I'm just gonna say it like this: at what level do you say, yeah, mistakes have been made on the court with LeBron James, but we still want to support him? Or mistakes have been made with Anthony Davis. He hasn't given us the Anthony Davis that we thought, but we still should be supporting him. And where does that begin? Because me personally, BDF44, I don't think that's a strength of mine. I do not find that is a strength of mine, being able to, in basketball specifically, just keep my mind on being supportive through struggle. And I think there's fruit to that. There's fruit to that because sometimes you give up on people too fast. Sometimes you try to run into situations that get you out of situations that are uncomfortable, and then you miss out on opportunities to overcome those uncomforts that lead to triumphs and so on. So in my mind, I'm like, Laker Nation, we have, gotten to a space where we're watching Russell Westbrook. He wants out of here, or it seems, although he didn't officially ask for out. Based on what we're seeing with his agent, it seems like they parted ways because the agent believes that Russ should be a Laker and that Russ believes he should be out of here. Now, I look at that situation and I responded yesterday saying, Russell, I don't think it's our fault that you suck. And I say that with respect, freely saying the word suck, but he sucked last year. It's not our fault that you struggled, is what I'm trying to say. It's not our fault, right? Follow me here. It's not our fault that we struggled. But I think Russell, if what the reports are saying, I think Russell is making a decision that doesn't necessarily fit him wanting to extend his career because he's trying to get away from us who haven't been supporting him through his struggles. And when I say us, I'm including whoever else in the organization who's not supporting him through his struggles. Now, I think most people think like me. We don't want to support you through your struggles. We're trying to win right now. We're trying to get through the situation. We can support you after you retire in whatever your endeavors are. We want to win right now. But what if what we're doing is going to back us into a situation that makes us worse? What if what we're doing to try to get away from his struggles means that we are actually inadvertently walking away from an opportunity that would otherwise make us a better team? Now, I don't see that. But what I'm saying is I've seen certain scenarios where in life that has been the case. You gave up on something too early. You quit on somebody while they were struggling. They came back and bounced back and played well. Now, in this specific case with Russell Westbrook, I don't think the fit on the basketball floor works. So if we were going to make the fit work, we have to shuffle around the lineup in ways that are just not really possible for us. So moving on from him, even with this wisdom in his mind, is still most logical to me. But all in all, it just seems to me that he's backing himself into a corner, as we discussed yesterday, that may actually have him out of the league just because he's trying his best to get away from what feels like probably a very toxic and unsupportive situation. So at what point do we as Laker fans look at the fruit in trying to be somewhat supportive of someone who struggled for the sake of making ourselves more attractive to people who otherwise are in the fence about whether or not they want to come here? I ain't fixed my bed. You've seen that before, but that ain't nothing new. Point is, this is one of those situations where I'm looking at the Lakers and I'm looking at all of this and I'm saying, yeah, we can go on about business as usual. We really can. There's nothing wrong with having an entitled mindset as a fan base. When you know what you're worth, you know what you're about, you know what it takes to get these things. You've had Kobe, you've had Shaq, you've had Kareem, you've had all these great players. But what I also see, and this is something that I'm probably standing alone on, follow me. I also see other fan bases who've got caught criticism for certain things. Boston, they're getting criticism for being quote unquote a racist environment. Now, I don't think everybody in Boston's racist. In fact, I have a good friend from Boston who I know for a fact is not racist. So for whatever that's worth, hold that in the air as well. But that's the energy out there. All right, look at Utah. Similar. They've gotten caught up with a couple of their fans getting banned and stuff like that because they said stuff they shouldn't have said. Philadelphia. We've long talked about Philadelphia and how their fan base is respected for being jerks and will boo you for anything that doesn't make them happy for any reason. And I guess you got to be close to them to feel the love, because from here, all I see is reputation. So like I look at all this different stuff and I say, okay, people look at Lakers fans and say that we're the most delusional fan base and all of that. Sometimes we can be a bit irrational. Sometimes we don't ask the right questions as it pertains to what's possible for acquiring our team. And that's not our fault. We've been conditioned that way, I think, over the years by media to believe certain things about our organization, and dare I say, believe certain things about ourselves. And they've been telling us who we are as fans for 25 years. All Laker fans are, as I said, delusional. Oh, they always want this and that. No, what actually happens is you throw stuff in our faces. You plaster every superstar wearing our uniform. You give us these dreams that otherwise wouldn't be there if you guys didn't promote the stuff. So you kind of, I don't know, coerced us into behaving this way. No different than you coerce certain circumstances as you maneuver them. You know, everything has a reaction. For example, if you tell a 17-year-old kid that he's the king, you know what I mean? He's the king of the world and he's the best basketball player ever and that he's the next coming to Michael Jordan. When he steps into the league and believes himself to be the chosen one and has the right to move around and exercises that right as he sees fit, why are you mad at him? You told him he was the king. You made him believe in himself in such a way. And now as he exercises that belief, suddenly it's a problem. It may be a problem, but it's a problem because you've helped it along with the attention that you've given it, media. So I think a lot of our brains have been coerced into whatever it is we are, whether we want to admit it or not. A lot of us have been manipulated and, dare I say, forced into certain points of view based on certain things that have been embedded in our minds that we subject ourselves to by choice. But nevertheless, we're going to do that because that's what we've been coerced into thinking is normal behavior. So we follow these individuals and these different entities that put these thoughts in our minds and about human beings that we do not know, about circumstances that we're not involved in. And it gives us something too, because, you know, I've developed personally a passion for the game, a passion for talking about it. But nevertheless, I also see the way to go about it without the need or the presence of certain manipulative tactics. And so I've said all that to say I'm challenging myself and other Laker fans to give that some conversation, give that some thought, I guess, and then take it and run with it if you will. Because I'm personally at a point where I realize that the presence of our fan base being considered toxic could in fact hurt our organization going forward, slowly but surely, as more and more people start walking away from opportunities to join the Lakers because of the presence of this type of pressure that has been promoted as pressure, but also we feed into by booing our players, by going on social media and, you know, not being supportive in a way that really, really brings our organization down. Now, obviously, that's open-ended because the worldwide world of trolls is going to do whatever it wants to do. So this doesn't matter. It's not going to stop trolls from trolling. But what I am saying is those of us who are not trolls, who legitimately want to win, I think it starts in the mirror as it pertains to how we approach feeding into the narratives that are being placed out there about us as a fan base. You know, that's really what it comes down to. People are going to be people regardless, but I think it's a good portion of us who have our thinking caps on straight, who just want to win and would love to see guys come into our uniform serious about winning, and we'll support them from there. So that's on the players' part. You know, Russell came in talking about, I don't really care about winning, so to speak. I don't have expectations. That already got you off on the wrong foot. Now we ain't really looking to support you through your struggles because you're not here for the same things we are, or at least it seems that way. And I think that's also the disconnect. You know, and I always say, if you're coming to play with us, for us, be ready for what comes with that. But I also say we need to evolve just the same. We're Laker fans. We're at the top of the food chain. We're the ones with all the championships. We're the ones with all the glory. Even the Boston Celtics don't have the LA locale. So we're at the top of the food chain. And I just think that we're low-hanging fruit for media members like Skip and Stephen A. to talk about us and various pundits to talk about us and say that we're not this, not that, like not this and not that. At the end of the day, it is also understood that they're not this, they're not that, they're not this, they're not that, unless they're talking about us. So we won't let them forget it, but we'll also look to evolve and just try to support our players and not let them end their tenure as Lakers like this, like Westbrook is, where he's trying to scramble to get the hell out of here because the situation's so hectic. And it don't even make any sense for him to try to get out of here, because in his benefit, for what it is he wants, which is to continue playing basketball, he should probably want to be here. He should be playing along with this charade just like Darvin Ham. They should be buddies to the end if Russell Westbrook's trying to get this thing done correctly. And I thought he was playing it well all the way up until 2 days ago when the information came out about his agent and all of that. So I felt, all in all, Russell's been a good Laker. I mean, off the court, with the way he's supposed to handle his business, the way he's supposed to support the team, support players and all this. Yeah, it's a little goofy, it looks funny, but it's the right thing to do. It's exactly the way he's supposed to play it. But all in all, I just felt like getting on this camera, letting you guys know that I just don't think he's making a good decision trying to force his way out of here, because I don't know that he's going to land anywhere, as I said last night. And I just feel like if we were more supportive, if we weren't booing and laughing at him, if we weren't supporting the nonsense that talks bad about his name, and he felt a little better about LA, I think he'd probably make a more sound exit from our franchise than trying to force his way out of here to the detriment of his own situation. So that's ultimately what I want to come here and say, man. I don't think he's making a good decision. And, it's one of those situations where I don't think he has to make that decision. I just think that his mental health, and I'm going to say that with confidence, is at a space where it's like, I need to get the hell away from them. I need to get the hell away from them. I need to get away from people who are talking about my name in regards to these Lakers. I need to take purple and gold off. And, it's one of those situations where, like, for what it represents to me, we got to do better. We got to do better to make sure that no player has that type of experience putting on our uniform, especially somebody who's a Hall of Famer. Because what that ends up doing is resonating with other Hall of Famers. And we'll mess around and not be able to get people we want, because they'll remember how we treated Russell, or they'll remember how the environment went with Russell, etc., and won't care too much about putting on purple and gold because of it. Won't care too much about maybe the perks that come with off-the-court opportunities if they're looking at their mental health possibly going by the wayside just for putting on the uniform. That could have reverberating effects across many, many moons for us. Many moons. So, it starts with the front office and it ends with support from people like myself. And, I'm not going to be able to always be able to do it. I'm not going to be always able to support players who are struggling. In fact, I think most of the time I won't, which is why I made this video. You know what I mean? We want to get to that point, but we're not there yet. But I see the fruit in trying to be. Because if too many more situations end like this, Russell bounce unhappy, Bron bounce unhappy, AD gets traded or whatever, unhappy after signing with us and wanting to be here, all of that looks terrible. All of that looks terrible. And I appreciate Jeanie Buss's unwillingness to just offer AD up and trade, because that angle right there, not only does it look bad to AD, but it looks bad to other people who may want to choose us later on. Like, all you're going to do is just trade me once you find a KD up. You know what I mean? I'm Anthony Davis, but the moment a KD come around, you're going to just get rid of him. Now, me, I would, but I'd also be dealing with the consequences of that. And I don't know that I'd love those consequences very much in the long term. So, as I learn, I share the wisdom I receive. And I just think that the Lakers are in a spot where, they're choosing to be supportive of Anthony Davis in this situation. I think that's the way to go. Be supportive. I think that's where Brooklyn has went left. They weren't supportive of Kyrie. They're trying to be controlling of Kyrie. And see, that's what I understand. When I read comment sections, I look at various things that they're talking about the conversation, and I think that's the sentiment of most humans. I just don't share it. Like, I don't want my athlete, so quote unquote, in a pigsty, controlled, locked up, only able to come out when I want them to. It's not a circus. You understand what I'm saying? I grew up going to the circus. I saw how the animals behave, and I also saw the behind the scenes stuff, and they weren't treated very well. I don't want my athletes in that environment. No. I'm one of those people who believe in the ability to compromise, work with people, and as they grow in power, you grow more supportive in helping them manage that power, because you know what it takes to manage that power. You know what happens when they wield it the wrong way. You know what happens when they do it and it ends up hurting them in the long run. Those are things that the organizations may be able to see, that the player, the temporary mindset, young player coming in, only got 20 years to play, got to get the most money, that mindset. they're trying to maneuver through the mistakes made by the organization overall when they made certain decisions to restrict players and certain decisions to otherwise pay certain guys this or that, or however it goes. Once you make those organizational decisions from on high, then guys have to try to react to that in whatever way they can to maneuver in a way that makes them feel comfortable. And I think that you're just seeing a big, huge demonstration of that over the last 20 years in the NBA. So when you see all of that coming about, my mindset is not to restrict players, because all you're going to do is take steps backwards in your relations with players. You know, don't expect people who have had freedom to step back into the cell, lock the door just so to keep things going. No one's going to do that. What we're going to say is find a way to, evolve to the idea of us having the freedom outside of the cells. And that's where I'm at with it. I believe in being like water as it pertains to athletes. I do not believe in, you got to stay connected to your contract, stay in hell for 4 years, whether you can win or not, because that's what you do when you sign a contract. No, that's just what we've agreed to over the years, and it allows people to stay in situations they're unhappy with. Maybe if we evolve a bit, learn how to maneuver outside of that algorithm, and we can find a way to compromise and succeed at the same time. And that's what we need to be looking for. Not ways of putting people back in cages, but ways of flourishing while they're outside of them. And that is what the NBA and America should be about. People always want to go back into the past. Oh, I remember when it was good old days when athletes just sign a contract and just play. Well, guess what? The good old days didn't have a fraction of the money going around. So the guys that were doing all that weren't wealthy. They weren't coming home to Maseratis. They weren't coming home to big mansions and beautiful circumstances and happy homes. They weren't. They were still struggling. Some of them had to do other jobs just to keep themselves going. That was the circumstance of the person who complied with the old NBA, the old ways of stand in your contract and not moving. You're asking a guy like LeBron James, who never has to work another day in his life. His kids don't have to work another day in their lives. His grandkids will not have to work upon arrival. And you're telling him he has to stay in the situation. No, he literally doesn't. And that's the point. That's the point. In the past, when you say I had to do something, I actually did. In this case, if I'm a billionaire, or if I'm 100 million in, 500 million in, I literally don't. We're partners. The type of money I got, we're partners. And so that's what it becomes, a situation where I think America, specifically, the people who agree with all players and just honor their contracts, they need to respect the fact that these players are not broke. They're not struggling, and they're in great situations. Better ones than you in a lot of cases. And they're not going to do what you or anyone else tells them to do. That's the beauty of having the American dream being reached. It's I don't give a damn money. I'm not. I play basketball because I love basketball. I've already made enough money to take care of everything. So unless you're gonna stop paying these guys, you're gonna run their money back down to $100,000 a player, then you'll start seeing guys comply and stay in the situation with 4-year, 5-year deals because they need to. Simple as that. So if we're not going to evolve to the understanding that class has a lot to do with the guy's behavior and willingness to stay in situations, then you're going to continue to run into roadblocks, real roadblocks. You know what I mean? You're giving guys generational wealth, and then you tell them they have to be stuck. Those two things don't equate. So be like water, NBA. I keep telling you. That's the only way it's going to work. You keep on going back and forth with these players, you're going to end up having a lockout. And this is why I started the video with this type of point of view. Starts with looking inward. Yes, we can look at players and say, he's trying to get the hell out of here, he's making a mistake. Yes, but I'm looking inward first. What can I do to be more supportive? I recognize I'm not that supportive of players who struggle. I recognize that I didn't say, keep going, Russell, when he was struggling. I was more so saying, Russell, you need to stop. You know what I mean? And that has a reaction, right? So, as I apply that inward looking, I tell others who are in positions of power to look inward first. I guarantee you that is where either mistakes or successes are often found, is when you make a decision to either allow someone the right to maneuver within your circumstance, or you apply the pressure of restricting them. That's what happens. So a lot of people are like, oh, restrict them. And I'm telling you, all that's going to do is make them fight. No one's going to go back and sit back and cower to the pressures of restrictions after coming out to freedom. It's not. It's not how that works at all, you know? And so I just think it's not realistic. is what I would tell people like this. It's not realistic, especially when you're asking African American people to fall back into restricted circumstances. Whether there's money attached to it or not, restricted circumstances are not going to be agreed to. That's just what you have to understand about us. Now, the response to that, which is something that I actually believe is real, is you remove us from the league. That's how that goes. You start seeing more and more players that are not of African American stature. I think that's the natural reaction to what we're seeing here. I do believe that. You see more Jovic is, and less Williams and Jameses. Like, seriously, that's where it's headed. Because what a lot of times in reaction to these type of situations, they say, this is what it's going to be if we continue to deal with them. That's how they look at the situation. And I have two things to say about that. One, I don't think it works without us. Respectfully, I don't think it works. It's not going to garner the same attention without the black guys. And two, you're going to find out you're going to have the same problems with others as well, because this is not a restricted to black person thing. That's what they end up finding out when they do stuff like that. It's like, you're going to do that to foreign guys as well, and they're going to do the same thing. They're going to be like, yo, I don't want to be restricted either. I may be more likely to live in Minnesota or Utah, but if I'm unhappy, I'm still going to want better circumstances. And you're going to have the same type of fight, if not a worse one, depending on the type of culture that they're from. So if you're thinking about phasing us out, it's going to cost you. Just putting that out there. It's going to cost you all the way. I think working with the black athlete is probably the best way to go for American sports. Just work with us, man. Work with us. And there's a lot to learn, for everybody, all athletes. It's a lot to be in touch with in terms of those on high trying to connect with those athletes. It's a lot to learn. But that's where we're headed. That's what it's going to be. Because if you go any other direction, there's going to be major resistance or major losses taken, in my opinion. Major. So, and this is coming from somebody who loves everybody. I support the white athlete. I like the white athlete. As a matter of fact, I got Jay Huff and a couple other guys on the team, Swider and my guy Austin Reeves. I grew up on John Stockton and Steve Nash. Like, I support all athletes. If they're playing the game with respect and with intent of winning, shoot, I want you on my squad. But I'm just looking at it from a natural reaction standpoint to how I know things tend to go. When they have trouble with black athletes or black people, they tend to just want to phase us out of stuff. So I just don't think that works in sports. I really don't. So I just want to throw that out there. But anyway, yeah. Hope everybody's having a good day. These are my honest thoughts. You know what I mean? I really do believe that compromise and self-assessment in sports will help us evolve. And I truly, truly believe if you're tired of certain segments, certain types of things on sports talk, if you're sick of certain behavior, certain energy, it starts with you. It starts with you. They are reacting to you, I promise. That's all it is. If we get up and say we do not like this as a whole, we don't like you talking this way about that player, we don't like you running this guy's name into the ground, you stop seeing it. You will stop seeing it. But as long as we're on some, let's troll, let's bring bad energy to everybody, let's bully everybody, let's get on people's cases for things they can't control or change. If that's going to be the mentality going forward, you're going to continue to see sports talk represent that type of energy. And whatever comes of it, comes of it. You know what I mean? So I'm of the belief that when you put bad energy out there, just bad things come of it. Things that aren't sustainable. If you're building a foundation on negativity, it's going to fall apart. So when I look at things from that perspective, I apply it to business too. Just the same. If you're going to treat people poorly, round them up, heck, take away their freedoms, trust you me, there's going to be a reaction to that that's going to give you a headache. I don't know when it's coming, but it's coming. It's going to give you, the oppressor, the headache. So just be ready for that. So that's what I would say to the Brooklyn franchise specifically, because I think that they are the prime example of a team right now that's really trying to control their players, whether they feel they have the right mindset or not. The point is, that's why all of this is happening. It's not necessarily because the players aren't compliant. No, it's the opposite. It's because you guys are trying to control the players. And grown men who are wealthy don't like being controlled, as we said, especially when they're elite at what they do. When you can line up the entire world in a line and they can knock them off one by one, each and every human being at what they do. When you have people like that and they're rich, what the hell are you going to tell them? KD has a league full of people he can beat. This is the pinnacle of the basketball world. And just about all humans in it He can beat. Literally. Like, they can't see him. So what are you going to tell him? That's what it really becomes. Like, yeah, you're a billionaire. You know, you're the owner of the team. But, like, even you aren't the best at something like I'm the best at something. Even you, in all of your money-making ways, can't line up everyone in the world and beat each and every soul at something. Can't do it. That's what you're dealing with when you talk about these athletes, man. Specific superstars. You ain't about to tell them nothing. You ain't about to restrict them or none of that. Not without physical force. So it's one of them situations where it's like, look, just work with the players, man. Work with them. If a guy's a little lost in the world and he's making certain decisions you don't agree with, the last thing you want to do is point at him and laugh at him, or point at him and say you're not good enough or something like that. All they're going to do is raise hell. That's all they're going to do. So if you don't want hell raised around you, it would be best to be supportive of the human, the human being. And I think that's where they've gotten lost. I'm looking at the situation with KD. I'm watching them, listening to people telling them to keep them hostage, keep them stuck, make them honor the contract. Keep them in situations that make them unhappy. Why? To make people who are unhappy happy about them being unhappy. I'm telling you, that's not the way to go, Brooklyn. That's what you're doing. That's exactly what you're doing. You're trying to satisfy people who are unhappy by further making people who you need to work for you unhappy. Trying to satisfy people who want people in cages. I personally look at that situation and say, it's going to be tough to win in that environment, Brooklyn. It's going to be tough to win in that environment. You bring everybody back to that. It's going to be tough to win there. Because I know they think about running it back, and I just know better. I know better. You can't tell a guy like KD that, he's going to have to come back to a situation he don't want to be in. He wasn't going to acquiesce to what it is he asking you to do. When he sees the Clippers, and see, that's another thing. A guy like KD sees the Clippers. He knows what Ballmer's able to do for Kawhi Leonard. Got him PG. You think Ballmer was just gung-ho about giving away 5 picks for Paul George? Hell no, he wasn't. But because his money's long enough to do it, and because there's no restrictions on what he's willing to do for his team, he went and got him. He just went and got him. What is it going to cost? 5 picks? Huh? 5 picks? No, whatever. Let's just give ourselves an opportunity. And see, when a guy like KD sees something like that, and then he looks over and say, well, shoot, man, I can get my boy Kai paid. Like, if all Kawhi had to say to Ballmer was, bring him or you lose me, well, shoot, let's apply this to Brooklyn. Pay Kai or you lose me. And that's not how it's working for Brooklyn. They're not willing to. And there's reasons for that. Paul George situation, there's no attachments to Kyrie Irving, to Paul George like there is Kyrie Irving. So I respect that. It's easier to do, I think. But nevertheless, KD's not looking at it that way, I don't believe. And you shouldn't either. If you're Brooklyn and you want to keep KD, you should be like, well, whatever it takes to keep KD. Or weigh it like I would weigh it. Y'all know how I am. Blow it all the way up. I don't want either one of them. If I don't get what I want nothing. So get them out of here. And we'll start over. And so it just depends on how you look at it. But what you can't do is say, all right, both of these guys are unhappy. Bring them back. Force them. And then in that, over time, it'll smooth out. Because that's what ESPN wants you to think. Over time, it'll smooth out. And everybody will just fall in line because when black people are oppressed and don't feel happy about their circumstances and then further forced into situations, they're going to fall in line and just relax, right? Because that's basically what they're trying to sell us. That's not how this goes anymore. It's not how that goes anymore. I just want you guys to know that. We're not going to be doing that anymore. Those days are over for the black guys. So, yeah. It's gonna take a lot more than you just demanding we fall in line for us to actually do so. We got to see the fruit in doing so, and if we don't see the fruit in it, then there'll likely be resistance at our leisure. So I speak for myself in that, and I think I speak for any black person who agrees with me. We ain't falling back in your cages. So let that be what it's worth, and money will not bind us to that either. Well, some of us love money, and if that's the case, it ain't a bind. But for those of us who do see that as a bind, won't be bought at all. So that's what I wanted to say, man. I know this is a sports conversation, but these are black athletes. And the presence of the energy of racism is always present when the topic is in place because the history tells us that topic is relevant. It really is. And unfortunately, when you're talking about restricting people, it's hard not to think about slavery. It's hard not to think of the spirit of slavery when you're looking at people supporting the binding of black minds, whether rich or poor, by money or no money involved. When you're talking about binding people who don't want to be bound to circumstances they don't want to be in, and there's a mob of people who really want to support that, yeah, that's when I part ways with all of y'all. I part ways with every last one of y'all who are on board with that. And then I look for the freedom for those who are looking for freedom for themselves. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.